Supreme Court is back in session. Yeah. They rejected today an appeal by Ghislaine Maxwell to overturn her conviction. That means her only chance at getting out of prison is a pardon from you. Is that something you're open to?
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I'd have to take a look at it.
In some of the most shocking and not shocking news, it was revealed today that Ghislaine Maxwell, the notorious criminal sex offender associate of Jeffrey Epstein, is appealing to Donald Trump for a pardon. But why would she do this? Why would Ghislaine Maxwell think President Trump would have any interest in her case? Now, before we get into this, please make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more hard-hitting daily news from this channel. As I'm sure many of you watching are thinking, this is truly shocking coming from the party that is so staunchly against pedophiles.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
This is, after all, the Republican Party, the party of law and order.
Law. This is now effectively a riot.
Order.
We need to hold the doors of the Capitol.
I mean, isn't that one of the main reasons Republicans have demonized transgender people so much? Because they're all groomers. Okay, to be fair, I do like to try and be, impartial and fact-based on this channel, and also as a human, and the evidence does show that transgender people do commit sex crimes at a rate higher than the general population. Oh, no, wait. No, it doesn't. In fact, the evidence shows that trans people are more likely to be the victim of sexual crimes than the general population. Even musky Elon's anti-woke AI Grok bot, which has been taken out back and savagely beaten over the head several times until it stops repeating the truth, I mean liberal bias, seems to agree. In fact, it's been reported that after Grok said this, Elon Musk arrived in the Cybertruck and took Grok to a farm upstate. Wow, Republicans must be feeling so silly now. All that hate based on not understanding the facts. But anyway, I should stop attacking the Republican platform and get on to the meat of today's story. As Raw Story reports, Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, having struck out with the Supreme Court in her bid for freedom after being convicted of sex trafficking, is now prepping a package to be given to Donald Trump in the hope that he will commute her sentence. So Democrats have obtained documents shared between Ghislaine Maxwell and her legal team indicating that she wants Trump, also a former associate of hers, to intercede. According to Politico, if approved by President Donald Trump, Maxwell could see her sentence, 20 years for her role in Epstein's sex trafficking scheme, significantly reduced. The report adds that Maxwell, who was recently moved to a low-security prison after meeting with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, a former personal lawyer for the president, total coincidence there, no corruption to see, moving on, appears stressed that she has so much to share why she should be free that she wants Trump to review. In a document designated RE commutation application, all pedophiles can rhyme, she wrote, "I'm struggling to keep it all together as it is big and there are so many attachments." I mean, what does that even mean? Why would she be stressed that she has so much to share why she wants to be freed? Like, surely the reason any criminal would want to be freed is pretty obvious. Is it just that she wrote, "Let me out of prison, please," 100 million times on a piece of paper? This disturbing report adds insult to injury for, the victims and, fans of justice in general. Because, as that article just mentioned, Ghislaine Maxwell's already been moved to a minimum security prison. There are people out there doing time for objectively way less severe crimes who are probably still in max security prisons in appalling conditions. She's in a minimum security prison, and she was so pleased about it, she wrote a letter to a friend. Listen to this. Again from Raw Story, convicted sex offender and Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell gushed over her special privileges in prison recently in a series of letters to her family and attorney. "I feel like I have dropped through Alice in Wonderland's looking glass. I am much, much happier here and more importantly safe. So yes, everyone can breathe a sigh." It's kind of infuriating how much empathy terrible people seem to have just for themselves. Oh, thank God I'm safe here. Apparently, Ghislaine Maxwell has been entitled to special privileges not afforded to other inmates, something Jamie Raskin described as VIP treatment. They are even delivering her meals to her, and no inmate is allowed to prepare her meals, wrote one inmate at a Texas prison according to emails obtained on the MC News. The inmate was like, "Oh, I bought this poison for nothing." In a letter to her attorney, Maxwell said that the prison warden had worked in tandem with her legal counsel to expedite filings on her behalf at the Supreme Court. Special treatment that one criminal defense attorney described as highly unusual. Yeah, highly unusual is putting it mildly. Imagine how the movie Shawshank Redemption would have gone if the warden was like, "Let me help you with your legal documents." It wouldn't be anywhere near as interesting. Now, the story about, her special treatment, that came out a few days ago. There's been an update to it today. USA Today reports, as well as having the custom prepared meals delivered direct to her cell, the warden is making special accommodations for her to meet with visitors, and she was allowed to have special time to play with a puppy, among other exceptions from standard prisoner treatment. Any inmate or staff who questions or blows the whistle on the institution's grotesque pampering of a serial sexual abuser and human trafficker at taxpayer expense is being punished and retaliated against by the prison warden. This top-flight luxury service has reached such a point of absurdity that one of the top officials at the prison has complained that he is sick of having to be Maxwell's bitch. Think about that. at a US prison, US prisons having some of the like worst conditions and corruption and all this stuff in, any Western country, a US prison official, the land of the free, where US prison wardens and officials usually get to beat inmates for their own entertainment and enjoyment and feed them, bullshit meals with no problem, is complaining that he is having to be Maxwell's bitch. How bad are things over there that a warden is complaining about that? This is what happens when you have a legally convicted felon in the White House. That's right, just in case you're watching this and you somehow weren't aware, Donald Trump is a legally convicted felon. And a good amount of the country was like, sounds good, sign me up for round 2. And since the start of his second term, which feels like 10 years ago, actually was about 10 days, he's now proceeded to commit what appear to be many, many more crimes against the US people and Constitution. It just feels like Trump is doing so much arguably illegal shit that the definition of, legal, illegal, right and wrong, sanity and insanity is completely lost all meaning. Now, I think this would be objectively awful if any sort of convicted felon, was being treated this way just because they happen to be maybe friends with the president. But let's actually take a moment and remind ourselves of the crimes Ghislaine Maxwell's actually convicted of. So, from Axios, in 2022, Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison by a federal court on sex trafficking and other charges for helping Epstein sexually abuse several teenage girls. A federal jury in December 2021 found Maxwell guilty of 5 counts, including sex trafficking of minors for recruiting and grooming teenagers for Epstein between 1999 and 2007. Maxwell was also found guilty of conspiracy to entice a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, transporting a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. And let's not also forget, according to 4 of the women who were sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein when they were under the age of 18, they also said that Maxwell facilitated and sometimes participated in that abuse too. This is a serious fucking criminal. Not that just facilitating it would be, so much better anyway, but she actually participated in this stuff as well.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
And this is the woman where people are now wondering, will the President of America pardon her? I'd like to think if you asked any sane American, anywhere on the American political spectrum, so, center to far right, what they thought was a worse crime, entering America illegally or, trafficking and abusing minors, I'd like to think they'd unanimously say the one where endless amounts of children were abused and trafficked for the amusement of incredibly sick, incredibly wealthy individuals. British Chris, you just said incredibly sick twice. Now, the next pertinent question is Trump actually likely to do this? It's one thing for her to send him, a document, a package with I want to be let out of prison, please, written down 1 million times, but will he do it? I mean, surely there's no history of Trump pardoning people who committed serious crimes just because they happen to be linked to him. And President Trump obviously hates sex offenders. And to give Trump credit, he's already made clear that he will not pardon another very famous sex offender, Diddy, as in, did he fucking do it, as in, yes he fucking did, aka Sean Combs, purely because of Trump's morals. Oh no, wait! No, he didn't. He said he wouldn't pardon Diddy because he made some terrible statements about him during his campaign. The whole trafficking, sexual assault, abuse, multiple felonies, NBD, saying mean things about Trump, back in jail. Remember guys, if you want to stay on the right side of the law during this administration, you have to refer to the Trump scale of legality. Now, the whole Epstein thing has been a major headache for the Trump administration ever since he came into power again, back when Dr. Strange did another one of those wacky spells and sent our whole timeline into the bad place. The Trump campaign ran extensively on releasing the Epstein files, only to get into power and turn around and be like, lol, what files? That's a Democrat hoax! Which I think means it then makes sense to say that the Republicans' platform was actually a hoax. Which actually checks out. To be fair, this has upset some Trump voters, but many more have decided to double down on whatever the fuck Donald Trump says is reality this week. These are the real cultists, the one where Donald Trump could literally stick his tongue down their ear and Trump could be like, relax, this is Joe Biden's tongue. And they'd be all like, God damn, Joe Biden, that's the 5th time this week! It seems like a lot of Republicans have suddenly decided that the Epstein files are unimportant, despite the fact that they're specifically about a proven criminal sex trafficking ring.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Republicans are nothing if not consistent, which is presumably why they invaded a pizza parlor in DC, evidently looking for an underground child abuse cellar. Now, if you guys are lucky enough to not remember or have not even read about Pizzagate, let me refresh you on that. That conspiracy theory revolved around a Democratic donor who happened to own a pizza shop in Washington, DC, and based on some, leaked files, they were convinced that, stuff on the menu or talk about pizza was actually code for paedophile stuff. Now, in the words of the restaurant owner, they ignore basic truths, Alephantis tells BBC Trending. For instance, the conspiracy supposedly has run out of the restaurant's basement. We don't even have a basement. I think that about sums up the Republicans' grip on reality. A pizza place with no basement? That must be the location of a sex trafficking basement. The Epstein files, which were handed out to right-wing influencers for some light reading, a hoax that doesn't exist. This is the morally consistent Republican Party. The right wing cares greatly about children.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
It's not at all a reason to hide bad behaviour behind a hysterical moral call to arms. We're against pedophiles. If you're against us, that means you're for pedophiles. On a completely unrelated note, the equally fart-stenched far-right in the UK recently organised a rally which was sanely and not at all manipulatively called Protect Our Women, which was all about protecting women from immigrants, because, of course, a lot of these people's mindset seems to be, why do they get to come over here and assault our women? They're taking our jobs!
Watching this next clip as a woman confronts an angry group of patriots with the fact that white men form grooming gangs too, and watch their reaction when confronted by this fact.
I am a victim of grooming. I was groomed when I was 11 years old, and I am disgusted with all of you here. I'm disgusted with all of you because it was not an immigrant, it was multiple.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Lastly, on a completely unrelated note, I want to share some cool street art with you that was recently seen in Los Angeles. I've been British Chris, and I'm really American.